Welcome to History Point, your ultimate destination for exploring the epic rise and fall of countries, empires, and civilizations throughout history. Today, we embark on a journey through the rich and complex history of the Philippines. With over 7,000 islands, a rich tapestry of cultures, and a story shaped by indigenous tribes, powerful empires, and colonial rulers, the Philippines has a history like no other. In this video, we'll journey through thousands of years, from ancient barangays to the rise of a modern nation. Welcome to the full history of the Philippines. The Philippines is a mosaic of indigenous cultures, colonial legacies, revolutions, and resilient people who have continuously shaped their destiny. Let us begin where it all started, the pre-colonial Philippines. Before any foreign powers arrived, the islands were home to organized societies called barangays, led by local chieftains known as datus. These communities had their own systems of governance, law, and trade. They practiced animism and honored nature spirits called anito. Anitos, or nature spirits, were honored, and babaylans, often women, served as spiritual leaders. These figures were among the most respected in the community, often acting as intermediaries between the material and spiritual worlds. Babaylans conducted rituals for healing, agricultural abundance, weather, and protection. Their knowledge of herbs, chants, and ceremonial practices formed the core of indigenous spirituality. Their elevated status meant they often held influence rivaling that of the datu, especially during times of illness, calamity, or spiritual crisis. While many were women, men could also become babaylans, often adopting feminine roles or attire to align with spiritual traditions. Communities had laws known as Batasan, and conflict resolution was handled locally. The Batasan, which functioned as customary laws rooted in oral tradition and enforced by the datu, elders, and respected community members. These laws addressed issues such as property rights, marriage, trade, and punishment for offenses. Disputes were resolved through community deliberation or trials involving oaths and ordeals. The Batasan emphasized restitution over punishment, aiming to restore harmony rather than exact vengeance. Legal decisions were recorded orally by elders and passed down through generations, ensuring continuity of communal values and norms. The discovery of the Laguna copperplate inscription reveals a highly developed society as early as the 10th century. The Laguna copperplate inscription, dated to 900 CE, was a landmark in understanding this early period. Written in a mix of Old Malay, Sanskrit, and Old Javanese using the ancient Kawi script, the inscription documents the forgiveness of a debt by a ruler, Namwaran, and his descendants. It reveals that pre-colonial Filipino societies were already part of a sophisticated regional network, had systems of writing, political authority, and legal codes, and were connected to broader Southeast Asian cultures. Trade thrived with India, China, Arabia, and Southeast Asia. Social classes existed. The Majanu, nobility, the Mahalika, warrior class, the Tamawa, freemen, and the Alipin, servants. The Majanu were the highest social class, composed of nobles who either inherited their status or gained it through exceptional leadership and service. They held political power as datus, or advisors to the datu, and often had control over land and the people living on it. Their status was reinforced through elaborate clothing, ornate gold jewelry, and rituals that distinguished them from the lower classes. Marriages were typically arranged to strengthen alliances between clans, and the Majanu frequently played key roles in diplomacy and governance. Their authority was respected, but it also came with responsibility, acting as stewards of justice and welfare within their domains. The Mahalika were the warrior class, serving as the armed defenders of the barangay and protectors of their datu's authority. Unlike the Majanu, their influence was tied to martial prowess rather than lineage. Mahalikas were expected to provide military service during conflicts, accompany the datu on raids or expeditions, and uphold peace and order. While they were not as wealthy or politically powerful as the Majanu, they enjoyed considerable prestige and were often exempt from taxation in return for their service. They could own property and slaves and were typically respected figures within the community. Loyalty and bravery were key virtues of the Mahalika, and those who distinguished themselves in battle could be rewarded with land, titles, or even entry into the Majanu class. The Tamawa were the class of freemen who occupied a vital space in the social and economic structure of pre-colonial society. Often former warriors who had pledged service to a datu, Tamawas were neither nobility nor slaves, but enjoyed certain rights and privileges. They paid tribute to the Datu and could be called upon for communal labor or military support, though unlike the Mahalika, they were not professional warriors. Many Tamawas were farmers, fishermen, or artisans, contributing to the barangays' economic livelihood. They could own land and slaves, and some rose through service or economic success to achieve higher social standing. The status of a Tamawa was hereditary, but one could be demoted or promoted based on personal conduct or loyalty. As such, they represented the heart of pre-colonial society's working and service-oriented class, balancing subordination with autonomy. The Alipin, or dependent class, were the lowest tier in the social hierarchy, but their condition varied widely. There were two main categories, the Alipin Namamahay and the Alipin Sigigilid. The Alipin Namamahay had their own homes and lived relatively autonomous lives. They served their masters by farming, building, or offering a portion of their produce, but they could marry without consent and sometimes even own property. In contrast, the Alipin Sigigilid lived in their master's house, had little to no personal freedom, and required permission for major decisions. Alipins were not necessarily born into servitude. Debt, punishment, or warfare could reduce someone to Alipin status. Importantly, social mobility was possible. Through loyalty, ransom, or accumulated wealth, Alipins could buy their freedom or even rise to become Tamawa. The existence of this class underscored the stratified yet flexible nature of pre-colonial Filipino society. Despite the stratification, mobility was possible, often through merit or wealth. By the 10th to 14th centuries, coastal settlements like Butuan and Manila were already trading with Chinese merchants, exchanging gold, pearls, and spices for silk and ceramics. Early Manila, known as Maynilad, was already a thriving Muslim settlement before Spanish conquest. Strategically located at the mouth of the Pasig River, it was a center for trade, governed by Raja Sulaiman, Raja Matanda, and Lakan Dula. The city was connected to a vast maritime trade network and boasted fortified settlements, bustling markets, and vibrant cultural life. But everything would change in 1521, when a Portuguese explorer, sailing under the Spanish flag, Ferdinand Magellan, set foot on these shores. Magellan's arrival marked the beginning of Spanish interest in the archipelago. Although Magellan was killed in the Battle of Mactan by Lapu-Lapu, the Spanish would return. In 1565, Miguel López de Legazpi founded the first Spanish settlement in Cebu. From there, Spain began consolidating its hold, converting locals to Christianity, and introducing a centralized government. Spain introduced Christianity to the Philippines, which profoundly transformed the spiritual, cultural, and political landscape of the islands. Catholic missionaries, particularly the Augustinians, Franciscans, Jesuits, and Dominicans, played central roles in converting the local population. They learned local languages and customs to aid their missionary work and established a vast network of parishes, schools, hospitals, and convents. The spread of Christianity often went hand in hand with the suppression of indigenous beliefs, leading to the decline of the Babaylands and the destruction of native shrines and practices. Religious festivals, or fiestas, were used to replace traditional rituals and became a key part of local identity. Over time, the Catholic Church gained immense influence, often rivaling or even surpassing the authority of colonial officials. Christianity not only shaped Filipino spirituality but also left a lasting imprint on art, music, education, and social norms, contributing to the creation of a unified colonial identity under Spain. The Philippines became part of the global economy through the galleon trade between Manila and Acapulco. Goods from China and Southeast Asia flowed through Manila, en route to the Americas and Europe. However, colonization brought suffering. Filipinos endured forced labor under the Polo y Servicio, heavy taxation, and social stratification that favored Spanish elites. Despite this, resistance never ceased. From the Daguhoy Rebellion to Diego Salang's uprising, Filipinos fought back. These revolts would plant the seeds of nationalism. By the late 19th century, a new wave of thinkers emerged. José Rizal's novels awakened a generation. The secret society Katipunan, founded by Andrés Bonifacio, ignited the flames of revolution. In 1896, the revolution broke out. Filipinos from all walks of life rose up against Spanish rule. Emilio Aguinaldo emerged as a key leader. The execution of José Rizal in 1896 only strengthened the resolve of the revolutionaries. By 1898, Spanish power was collapsing. That same year, the Spanish-American War broke out. The U.S. defeated Spain and took control of Manila, signaling the end of over 300 years of Spanish rule. On June 12, 1898, Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence. But hopes were short-lived. The Treaty of Paris transferred the Philippines to the United States. This led to the Philippine-American War between 1899 and 1902. It was followed by a brutal conflict, with high civilian casualties and widespread destruction. Under American rule, the Philippines saw major reforms. Public education was established, English became the medium of instruction, and new infrastructure was built. In 1935, the Commonwealth of the Philippines was established, with Manuel Quezon as president. It was a step toward full independence. World War II brought devastation. Japan invaded in 1941. The fall of Bataan and Corregidor led to the infamous Death March. Despite occupation, resistance movements thrived. Filipino and American guerrillas fought back, risking their lives to free their homeland. In 1945, Allied forces liberated the Philippines. Manila was left in ruins, but the country was free once again. On July 4, 1946, the Philippines became an independent republic. The early years were marked by rebuilding and political growth. Don't miss part 2 on the history of the Philippines. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out as we conclude this epic journey.